for those who followed along, I've had a long history of, I'll call them gremlins with my truck. Going back to year one, every single year I've had, different little issues here and there that have popped up. Some of the ones is, stuff that everybody had, right? The wiper motor and a couple little, things that were fixed that everybody got fixed. But then I had things like the door cards on my doors had delaminated and were coming off, and both my running boards were changed out. I had a tail light that got water intrusion. So I've had a number of 12-volt issues. I've had two 12-volt wire harnesses replaced, two 12-volt batteries replaced prior to this recently. And, after the last time they replaced the fuse box, battery module also was replaced. So I thought I was in good shape. I thought I was doing okay. I'd taken a nice long road trip down to San Diego and Disneyland and Legoland and back up the coast, and things were going well. And then we had a big rainstorm up here, and the rear light bar, which had already been replaced under the program, and the rear, the reverse lights got water in them. And so brought it by. I also had a problem with a rear shock absorber, and the front end was making some grinding noises coming out of the front area. So I took them all in, got them all together, and said, "Hey, can you look at all this stuff?" And they replaced the shock absorber, found some parts of the front wheel assembly that got replaced, and replaced the light bar and on the back and the reverse lamps. A day and a half later, actually, we were on the podcast with Robert from Ford. And in the middle of the podcast, I get an alert on my phone of battery drain and drive your truck, and it disconnected from the app. And I've seen that a million times. Like, I've seen it so many times. And I've been stuck at a drive-in movie theater at a Tesla event. Unfortunately, I was the only non-Tesla at a drive-in movie theater with my family. And right in the middle of all these Teslas, my truck dies, and like nobody can move. It was a whole thing. So I've gotten used to disconnecting the 12-volt battery, resetting with the OBD2 scanner, doing all this stuff, and kind of bringing it back to life eventually, and then getting it back plugged in and getting it to the dealer. And that's where they've replaced the battery and all these other different things. Happened also at work, where I went out one day at work, and I think I messaged Martin. Where Martin, I think you were the one that told me I had one headlight stuck on. The headlight was stuck on, and it was the driver's side headlight, and it seemed like it was shorted out. Again, it was after a rainstorm, and so had to get that. It died. I had to get a ride home, and got the Ford engineers. They remoted in and put it in a special engineering mode that got it powered up enough that I could take it to my dealer. And the distance between my house, my work, and my dealer is all within a 10-mile radius. So it's all very close, and, took it by there. And so on this latest, I got it back. On one occasion, I never even made it out of the dealership parking lot. Like, I turned on my air conditioner, drove forward, and the entire truck shorted out. So in that occasion, I never even made it out of the dealer, and they went and replaced the wire harness for a second time. And then on this occasion, it was a day and a half after I went to go drive the truck, and to get it, and I made a U-turn so I could put it into my driveway and plug it in. And I was like, hey, I'll plug it in, I'll charge it up. I think it was like 50% state of charge or something. Midway through the U-turn, in the middle of the intersection between my street and the next street, because you can't really U-turn a Lightning, and if you have to go to an intersection to U-turn it, otherwise you're making a 5-point turn in this thing. So mid U-turn, the thing just dies. And of course, it's a rainy night. It's the middle of the night. It's late at night because it was after our podcast. First tow truck driver shows up and can't tow it. Doesn't have the right equipment. I couldn't get it into neutral. I was on the phone with Martin in the middle of the night. I feel bad. Thank you, Martin, for picking up the phone. Tried to have, sorry about the sound there. Tried to have a neighbor jump it with a Ford Ranger. The tow truck driver tried to jump it with a big battery box. Nothing would work. Tried all the different tricks and clearing the codes, everything I knew how to do. Had to finally get a second tow truck to come out, and they put these special skids under the tires, and with those special skids basically dragged it up the back of the truck. Brought it into Ford.
It in emergency tow mode.
No, emergency tow mode was grayed out. There was nothing. It wouldn't even allow you to enable it. I tried the different tricks where you hit I think it was the gas or the brake pedal or something, and then you hold the button for 30 seconds. All these different, there was like 3 different methods that you can put this thing into emergency tow mode, and I tried them all, and none of them worked. So we finally just had to drag the thing up the back of the truck. And so yeah, at that point, brought it to Ford. And then the next day I could see like I get alerts on my phone that the alarm had gone off. I got alerts that all the different alerts you get because it's 12 volt related, all the sensor alerts, all the ADAS alerts, all the pedestrian warning alerts, all the high voltage powertrain stop safely now alerts, everything was going off. And again, I've got other videos where I've seen this a bunch of times. And then the funny thing is this post. So I posted this, and I don't know if this is the most viewed post I've ever seen. It got 1 million views, and it got pumped everywhere. I didn't put this on Facebook or anywhere else or anywhere in the groups. I just kind of posted it and was like, hey, I had officially at that point asked Ford to buy it back. So it's officially, I've asked for it. I don't know that it's going to work out because mine is coming up on 3 years and 30,000 miles. And in California, the typical standard is 18 months and 18,000 miles. There are different caveats there, and there's, goodwill and good faith, and who knows, right? But that whole process kind of like
early.
Yeah, there was problems earlier, so they can consider, when the first symptoms occurred, which is, depending on what they want to count as a symptom or what they want to count as a fix, that goes all the way out, the first few months of ownership. So I don't know how that's going to get considered. I've tried so many times and so many things with it, so I don't know how it's going to resolve itself. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know what's going to come of it. But the latest was that they swapped out the 12 volt battery again, and so this would be the third swap, the fourth altogether, which seems like a lot. So I think at that point, I don't know what's going to come of it, but it's the Ford engineers, obviously some great folks at Ford had been looking at it. I reached out again today for any updates because the latest was on they had them drop the high voltage battery. They had them take pictures of the wire harnesses and the high voltage battery junction box. And the last thing, after they've reset everything and done a new 12 volt battery, the thing powers up now and it drives. So for how long? Or, what else? I don't know. So we're in this stuck place, right? We're in this place of the Ford engineers are like, hey, don't release it to them. We don't know what's causing it. Let's hold off. And then, but it'll be a week tomorrow that since it's been fixed. And I just told them, look, man, if we don't hear tomorrow some kind of idea, release it to me and I'm going to drive it. I have an EV event this weekend. And I've got a long road trip coming up at the end of next week that I'm supposed to be on. And I want to drive it now. I want to drive it over the weekend. I want to drive it during the week. It's either going to break or it's not. But it's not going to break, or we're not going to know sitting in a Ford parking lot. So if something's going to happen, I want to have it happen in the next 5 days, not when I'm in the middle of the desert in Arizona. And if nobody has answers and it's literally sitting in a parking lot for a week doing nothing, because I can see on the app that it hasn't moved, and I can, so yeah, I don't know. Tomorrow will be an interesting day. I'm either going to hear back an update that they're looking at something. And if they are, continue to look. Thank you. Like, do what you're going to do. Order a part, order a test, do something. But there's no parts ordered. There's no tests ordered. There's no data pointing to anything. At this point, let's go. I'm going to drive it. I'll tow it again if it breaks again. And it's kind of part of my argument too, is like, if you don't feel comfortable releasing it to me, it's all the better reason that it should just be bought back. So yeah, I don't know where it's going to end up. I love the truck. I love it. I want to have it. It's a 22. It's an original. It's the first year. I like that. I've paid into it a ton. So, I can probably get out of it about what I owe for it, but this is going to sound bad. I don't want to sell it to somebody. Like, I don't want somebody else to get my history. Like, I'd want it to go back to a Ford dealer, and I want them to look at it more, or I want to feel comfortable keeping it. And right now I don't feel comfortable keeping it, and I would feel guilty selling it to anybody else. So I don't know what's going to come of it. It's just kind of going to have to play itself out. And that's kind of the latest, right? That's kind of where it's at. And then, in the meantime, I've been driving a rental, which isn't an EV. And then Tesla, to their credit, the different people in the community and whatnot, they were super cool, and they actually gave me a Cybertruck for a few days, which was pretty darn awesome. I do frequent EV events in the Bay Area. This is funny. I was going to share this clip. This is my first moment taking it out the factory. You see this red barrier? Full self-driving was going to drive directly into that barrier. So this was my first couple minutes with full self-driving. So there's this red barrier there where the Cybertruck was trying to leave the parking lot of the factory. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. I was waving at the people that had just helped me out and helped me get into the Cybertruck. And it was linked to my phone is key, the whole thing, right? They gave me carte blanche, like take it, do whatever you want. I took it over to a ChemPower event, which was super cool. Turned Down for What and ChemPower have kind of been connected going all the way back to their opening of their factory. So that was super cool. ChemPower invited me out to the opening of their first West Coast site, which was run by Revel. And they also have locations out in the East Coast. Tom Malogny and Kyle and those guys have done videos on that. But this is the first station. It had 6 NACS connectors, 6 CCS connectors. Mayor of San Francisco was there. The mayor took a couple questions from Turn Down for What, which was super cool to be able to talk to the mayor that way. I brought the Cybertruck and was the first one to charge at the station. And so, yeah, that was, I kind of just made the most of a bad situation, I guess, and kind of took and then I took and let the family do it. So that was super cool to be able to take and like let my wife experience it, my kids experience it. This was my wife literally doing full self-driving for the first time. It drove to her work. It drove the kids to the comic book store. It drove us to dinner. It drove us back home. So like I've got all these videos and I'll leave links in the description. And then some people on X reached out and said, hey, I just, people get weird about this kind of thing. They don't like to watch content on Meta channels, and they don't like Google channels. People feel the opposite about X a lot. They'll be like, I won't watch anything on X. So for the rest of this week, I'll be posting some of these videos. I just posted today picking it up at the factory. Probably tomorrow or the next day, I'll post the one of my wife and the kids getting to experience it. I'll post the ChemPower thing as well. All that stuff's on YouTube as well. So yeah, I made the best of the situation. And, I didn't want to roll into a ChemPower event, an electric vehicle event with the mayor of San Francisco in a gas Ford Explorer. I just thought that would be bad form. So, shout out to Tesla for kind of stepping up and, going the extra mile and setting me up with an EV. It kind of made it, at least, a little bit better. So I spent, better part of half of a week driving a Cybertruck around doing FSD.
So if the deal was right, what would you do? If the deal was right, if the deal was right, like Pat's situation, if you had the opportunity to get into a Cybertruck, do you think you would jump, or you think you would try to stay with a Lightning?
No, I think here's the thing, man. The Cybertruck, it's all about FSD. Okay. Everything else and every other way, the Lightning it's a quieter ride. It's more practical. It's got more room in the back seat for my kids. It doesn't have the screen. My kids love the screen, being able to watch YouTube and Disney and stuff on that back screen. My son's got a great clip in one of them where he's talking about that back screen and he loved it. But there's not as much room back there. The front is not nearly as useful. And the big thing is for me, with a family and being the environment that it's in, the drama that comes with it. Like I usually park my Lightning on the street. I parked the Cybertruck in my driveway. I took my home video cameras. I can encircle the truck with a zone, and I had it send me alerts if anybody had any motion anywhere around it. And to have that, when you got a wife and a kids and that kind of stuff that you factor into it, it's the price of it is more than the Lightning. There's not necessarily better aside from FSD. Obviously the software, the phone is key. The FSD is years ahead of what Ford and Chevy and even Rivian are doing in a lot of ways. But when you're talking about a family and the practicality of it and the budget of it, it just doesn't make sense to go to Cybertruck as much fun as I had. So, I mean, I want to be back in a Lightning. I want to have faith in my truck, and I don't know how that's going to work out. Ford's got the employee pricing. So if it were to get bought back in time, but I don't know, that process takes time. So I don't know if it would get bought back in time for me to take advantage of employee pricing, but
here's what we'll do. If you get it back and it turns out to be a good truck, I know Pat's got the the 4Scan stuff, most likely to put an extended range battery in it. And I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with Zach, shout out Zach, where he put Blue Cruise in his. So if we could get you Blue Cruise and extended range, you're happy, right?
So my dilemma is that as part of and again I would be remiss if I didn't say how much Ford has gone out of their way to really take care of me through these different things. So I've always gotten in a loaner car. I've always had the communications team, aware of what was going on. And to their credit, they gave me an extended warranty. So it has now a 6-year, 70,000 mile warranty instead of the 3-year 36. And so it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, again, like as fun as it would be to have Blue Cruise, and I've joked for a long time about wishing I had Blue Cruise. I wouldn't modify.
You joked for years about it.
Yeah. It's my one regret, right? When you're like, what do you regret? Like the standard range is fine for me. I don't need the big battery pack,
which is just that, those are two huge things that they packaged together at the time.
It gives me the blessing from Ford to allow us to do this, to add Blue Cruise, all factory, nothing aftermarket.
Right. If they gave me the blessing to do that with for the extended range battery, to make it that unicorn, right? To give it the Blue Cruise and the extended range, I'd be all in, but I'd have to have in writing that Ford engineers or somebody was going to honor the warranty afterwards. Because again, there's just been too much, right? Too much history. I don't think I've ever gone 6 months without having it at the dealer for something. And so that's the dilemma, right? I've told people it's like that toxic first girlfriend relationship, right? Where you fall in love and there's so much great about it, but it's toxic as hell, man. You're fighting, you're arguing, you're getting stuff thrown at you. You're finding your Xbox out on the front lawn. Like, all her friends and your friends are chiming in, right? Because that's what I'm hearing. Oh, you should get the Cybertruck. Oh, you should have gone with Rivian. Like, right? It's a toxic high school relationship with my truck. But you never forget that first girlfriend, right? Like, she's still on your mind. You can't stop loving her. And that's the way I am with the truck. The truck has absolutely been abusive, and yet it's the best vehicle. I've had people comment, like, I'll post something and they'll be like, didn't you just post this? And I'm like, yeah. And they're both true. They're both true. It's a toxic relationship. It's a gremlin truck, and I love it to death. And what do I do? It is the drama. You
have Stockholm syndrome, Chris.
I do.
There's a nice truck here at Cleveland Copart West with blueprint and phone as the key.
Hey, I have one here too.
All the updates.
Nice star white metallic.
No issues.
You don't have to worry
ever.
about warranty.
Yeah.
Hey, out of curiosity, Chris, when you're having these issues, have you checked the surface charge, the surface voltage of the 12 volt?
Yeah, so I did get an OBD2 scanner. Martin actually helped me with that as well, and I've got it's even better now because the what's that scanner app called? I keep forgetting.
Car scanner.
Yeah. Car scanner now even shows up on the screen. And so a couple times I would check it. The state of charge was really low. The percentage was like 40-50% state of charge. The voltage was low. It was below 12 volts. It was like 11 point something volts. But then on other occasions, like this very last one, where I went in and tried to clear the codes and look at the state of charge was over 13 volts. That's what was really weird about this last one is we tried to jump it with the truck. We tried to jump it with the battery box that the tow truck driver had. My scanner showed it over 13 volts. And what was really weird, and it didn't show up well on the video, I don't think, but I was with Martin. I had disconnected my 12 volt battery completely. Both black and red wires were completely disconnected. The truck was still on. The screens were still on. The taillight was still on. Where was it getting 12 volts? Where was it getting power?
Your DC to DC still active.
See,
right, but there shouldn't have been a path. They should have disconnected everything even then. I've never had one where I just go 12 volt, all that stays on.
Yeah,
I shorted somewhere.
I've actually seen that where you've actually had to pull the fireman's loop to disable it.
Yeah, I think Martin was going to ask. He was at one point. He was like, I think he was going to have me do
that.
Yeah, and I was like, I just wanted to leave it as it was. It was weird because the headlights were on, but the light bar was off. The tail light was on. The screens were on, and there was no 12 volt battery connected to this thing. And I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, the DC the DC-DC converter still will put power out, but I've just never seen it. Pat, you say you've seen it where the converter will still provide power to the truck even with the battery disconnected.
Yeah, I've seen it happen a couple of times now. So I wanted to put this out there. The other trucks that we have that have a bunch of aftermarket upfitter equipment for lights, the stock AGM was trash.
What's AGM?
Absorbed glass matte battery, the factory battery that's actually in it.
Got it.
We did a lithium swap on them.
Yeah, I'm going to do that next.
I'm sorry?
Man, that's not a bad idea for you. It's like,
so here, Martin's talked about this with me as well, but here's my fear, right? Is that I go back to Ford with another problem and they're like, oh, look, you've got the ohm battery in there. You've got a lithium battery.
You swap them real quick and you put the OEM 12 volt in there and you say, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I don't know. I think you can. I think what you should do, I think what you were talking about earlier is especially if you want it this weekend, I would absolutely take a spare 12 volt and then, you can have peace of mind, I think, at least, hopefully with, at least being able to get it somewhere.
That's the plan.
Here's the thing. If you get it back, Chris, and you've got your 12 volt disconnected and you got a spare one, you can always pull that fireman's loop, which is underneath that left panel. It's a little green switch. It's easy to do. It takes a couple of seconds, let it reset. And then you've got your car scanner app to clear your codes. You've got the bases pretty much covered as if it's anything you can fix there without having FDRS and start getting into electrical problems.
Yeah, so stay tuned, right? Like I'll post it when I get stranded. I'll be like, hey, who lives in the middle of Needles, California, or who lives in the middle of Arizona? Supposed to be going to the Grand Canyon. I may have to camp out at the Grand Canyon. Who knows, right? It's hopefully not, but
well, you're just stay there. I'm only about 2 months behind you, and I'll stop and pick you up.
Come and pick up the family. Yeah, and the thing was, it's a real dilemma, right? Because we started talking as a family, like, what do we do? Do we just book airfare now and just fly out there? But that's last minute booking is incredibly expensive for a family. And once I land, I'm going to have to rent a rental car. And if I'm going to rent a rental car and spend all that money on a rental car, then I might as well risk it for the biscuit, man. Let's drive the truck. Let's make it die. That's my thing. That's my perspective, right? Is that sitting around does nothing. Like, let's drive it. Let's break it. It's either going to break or it's not. It's either fixed or it's not. It's got a problem or it doesn't. And if let's make it clear that it's been resolved, or let's make it clear that it needs to be bought back, and let's put it in a position to fail. And it either does or it doesn't. And it's and if it does, then I get it towed to a Ford dealer in the middle of the desert somewhere. I get an Uber for my family. We rent a car, which we would have had to do anyway. And then I see if Ford can reimburse me for that rental. And it's going to make for great content. I'll get another 1 million views as I'm stranded in the desert and everybody is tagging everybody. Hey, Chris is in the here. Right. And the thing is, and I'll be honest, like, I brought this up all the way back to last year. So last year before my trip, it had problems again, the one where it was stranded at work. And I brought up the topic. I said, hey, should we look at a buyback? And it wasn't, it wasn't done. Let's just say that. And so here we are again, so I'm always stuck in the middle here of trying to I never want to come across unappreciative or that I don't like the truck, because I do. But I also want to be transparent with what I put out there. And I want people to trust me when I say this is a great truck and an amazing truck. And there's people like Patrick who have driven this thing for 100,000 miles, and people like Martin who have rebuilt this thing half a dozen times, and people like Jace and his partner who use this as a business constantly. People like Sergio who've driven it across the country. People like, Joe Schultz that's, and Matt who have towed huge trailers behind it. I want them to authentically know that I mean it when I say this is an amazing truck. And I want them to know that despite all of what I've seen and despite all of what I've experienced, I still think it's an amazing truck. But I don't want to be, and I think we know people on X, for example, that are feel this way about other brands, where they will just only put the positive, right? They won't ever critique the parts of the brand that don't function and don't work. And I just don't want to be that guy. So I don't want to be the guy that comes across like that I'm not appreciative at all of everything Ford has done, because they've done tremendous things for me, more than I ever deserved or ever could imagine would have happened for me in my life. My life has changed because of the truck and because of things Ford has done for me. That said, I think I lose all credibility if I don't transparently put the things that I experience and the things that are happening to the truck at the same time.
No, absolutely. You got to be honest and truthful, and you got to tell your story. Like, that's just the bottom line. And well, you're taking a lot of flack for it, though. I get it, though. You've got a lot of opinions and a lot of people screaming at you, and I think you're doing the right thing. That you got to tell your story honestly and hope that Ford, in good faith, helps you out.
Yep.
Yeah, and Tony Pham, shout out to Tony Pham, by the way. For those that don't know, we were talking about the frunk earlier. Tony Pham is the one that makes the What the Frunk that goes into my front area that has the speakers and the light up and all that kind of stuff. And the dude's just an absolute genius. He makes the he makes the Quick Bandit license plate. You were talking about not wanting the license plate, Jay, on the front of your truck. We're trying to get Tony to make a Quick Bandit for the Ford Lightning so that you can, because in California you're supposed to have one.
Yeah.
I currently don't have a license plate on mine. I'm just, as you can tell by me wanting to pick up a truck and drive it 1,000 miles, I'm not a risk averse person. Yeah. I knew I'll go with the risk. So I've left the front license plate off of my Lightning after it got fixed on one of my other previous occasions where it needed to be fixed. They had to take apart the entire, front area, the entire cab. If nobody's ever seen those pictures, they're quite dramatic. Like everything in the front cab has been dramatic for me, not for maybe Martin, who takes these things apart for a living.
Sorry, Chris.
So it's so Tony, it's funny because both Tony and Patrick mentioned the DC to DC, and part of me wonders if the DC to DC is part of the problem here, because it's almost like the DC to DC isn't keeping the 12-volt battery properly charged and properly where it needs to be. Because, dude, my truck was sitting in front of my house. It wasn't doing anything. There was nothing plugged into it when it died last time. Something's not right on that, I feel like, on the DC to DC.
Yeah.
I think we should probably have another conversation about that, because that was the issue with my Silverado EV, killing the 12-volt, right? So stuff would stay on, and the DC to DC had it will adjust charge and amperage output based on draw. I will say this though, because I wanted to, before I lost my train of thought. My dumb self, I drove that Lightning from South Florida across the country, down California, into Baja California, Mexico, and back.
I think that's awesome. I'm totally on board for the crazy road trips and the love of the drive. I think that's great. That's what these trucks are meant to do.
My Canadian trip was an hour and a half north of the northernmost charger in Ontario. Hell with it, I'm going.
Yeah, we want to try to do UP this summer/fall. We're going to try to do it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that,
I was going to say I like doing these things too, and I know, Martin, you're gonna talk about your road trip coming up. I like to do these road trips too, because I want to show that EVs are great road tripping vehicles, and
it just takes a little bit of planning.
Yep. And hey, Mike the Car Geek joining us today.
Much less planning than we used to have now. I mean, I used to spend like a week planning a trip. I'd have triple, KOA stops planned behind the fast chargers. Now it's 15 minutes, and if it says Tesla, I don't even question it. Mm-hmm. The main thing I'm looking at now is wind, and if I want to charge at a hotel charger or not. That's really the two biggest things. So, but yeah, before we're about 6 or 7 minutes from our 2-hour limit, I wouldn't mind sharing what has transitioned here.